Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Bright Side of Life. I am your host, Melissa Bright, and today I am talking to the very talented Casey McQuillen. Casey is a singer, songwriter, and former American Idol star that has, throughout her career, dedicated herself to the cause of anti bullying, body positivity, and mental health advocacy. Following Idol, she founded the You Matter Tour, an anti-bullying concert series she's performed for 40,000 students at over 100 schools in the US and Europe. Casey and the tour have been recognized by the UN Foundation and GLAAD and featured on the Kelly Clarkson Show. How amazing is that? So before we go any further, Casey, welcome to the show. How are you doing on this wonderful morning?
I'm doing fabulously. Thank you so much. It's always funny to hear somebody like read your resume. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, there's the last 10 years of my life. Here we go.
I know. And it's like sometimes I'm like, do I read everything? Do I not? Yeah, I know exactly how it goes.
It's a Monday morning. I can use the pump up. I like it.
Exactly. You're like, that is my badass list. Oh yeah, I did all that stuff. When I read your bio, I'm like, that's amazing. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
So today I really wanted to talk about you and your own story and your journey, how that inspired you to start writing and singing, but then even moreover, how you got into being such an advocate for anti-bullying, body positivity, and mental health. So, and then of course, we're going to talk about your new album that has recently dropped in April called Skinny. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about your story? I always say little bit, but of course, you can go back as far back as you want and really how you got into not only singing, songwriting, but then how you wanted to encompass all this and if you made the transition later in life. Yeah, I'm going to leave that up to you. It's a loaded question, I know.
It's funny, I used to have, I guess, like an elevator version of this answer. It was a version of the truth that would be like, how'd you get into singing? It's like, I always sang from a young age. And, I really just feel like music is a connection. And that's all true. And I was in this hardcore interview once with this woman who was helped me book me onto the Kelly Clarkson Show. And so she was like she's a real industry expert, right? And
Yeah.
she looked right at me and she was like, I gave some answer like that. And she said to me, she was like, no, I don't mean like, why do people get into music? That's why everyone does this.
Yeah.
You'll see, I'm going to talk a lot. I'm a big talker.
Do it, girl.
Big personality. And she had been with me for like an hour and she said, you strike me as the kind of person that could have done a lot of things. And why did you do this? Not why do people do this? Why did you do this?
Yes.
And it was a really good question. And luckily, I'm in a lot of therapy. So I kind of had thought about these things before. And my answer to her was, I was bullied a lot as a kid for having, I think, a personality that was a little too big, especially a little too big for a girl. I was a little too smart. I got a little too good at grades. I was the head of student council. And I got along with almost everyone, right? But except for the kids who had a lot of the social power. And I felt unseen, misunderstood, ignored, made fun of. And I distinctly remember the first time I sang an original song. It was actually for my 7th grade English class. We had like an assignment to create something. And I decided I was going to learn the guitar, write a song, and perform it in front of the class. And I remember my English teacher being like, I have to grade you based on like the parameters you set. So like, I don't want you to set, this is a really gigantic parameter. I think my sister for the same thing, like wrote a poem. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, no, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And my grandfather had passed away in this period of time. And it was very upsetting for me. And I wrote a song about it. And it was the first song I ever performed. And I performed it for my English class. And I'm a very loud singer. And so after I sang the song, I went into the hallway to put my guitar away. And this kid who always really picks at me, when you like still remember the name of somebody you went to middle school with, like that's how much this kid picked on me, right? And I won't say it though,
You
Clearly,
know
I
who
was
you
said,
are.
I don't talk shit about you on the internet. But I came out into the hallway and he said, "Was that you singing in there?" And of course, like my all my defenses went up because I was every time a question like that had been asked to me before, it
Yeah.
was a slam was coming, and I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Wow, that was really good, and you wrote that song? Like, I'm so sorry your grandfather passed away." And it was wild, which shows how dehumanizing my experience with some of the people I went to school with was.
Yeah.
But that experience, so when I turned to this woman who asked me this really hardcore question, I said, my personality always seemed too big, my feelings seemed too strong, my stories seemed too much, my voice was too loud. But when I went on stage societally, I was allowed to be the full version of who I was. I don't have to dim myself on stage. And not only that, when I sing the songs I wrote, people then listen and then they like see me as a person.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I got really addicted to being seen as a person. And she went, well, that's the truth. Okay, moving on. So like, then it's like, it was like, that was the true answer. And so I
Yeah.
really think if you ask why I've engaged in so many topics throughout my career, mental health, bullying, and body image issues. These are
Mhm.
the issues that I've dealt with personally.
Yep.
And so I have songs about them. And
Yeah.
not only do I have songs about them, it really it's been the nexus of why I'm a singer from when I wrote my first song. If you sing about your pain, we as a society, it's like a bubble when you have a movie or a song or there's like for some people it's paintings, but there's I think movies and music are the most accessible, easily consumed form of emotional media.
Yeah.
And when you sing it, people exist in this bubble within the song that they allow themselves to engage with you and engage with these feelings in a way that I've never succeeded in the same way having a conversation around the dinner table. I've never succeeded in the same way making a post on social media. I never have. And
Yeah.
so it's not that I go out of my way to write songs about difficult topics. It's that I write songs about everything, including the difficult topics. But I find that throughout my career, it's the songs about the difficult topics, the fact that I'm willing to get up, explain why I wrote them, how I've been hurt, and then sing the song. People experience in their conscious mind these feelings they've been having themselves in their subconscious mind for years for the first time. And it's a really impactful. They have that feeling I had in that middle school hallway, feeling
Yeah.
seen. And so
Yeah.
that's again, I talk about this is my long answer to a short
I
question.
love it. I love
Um,
it. I love it. So I want to ask you first, when that guy, boy, however old he was, said that to you at that time, do you remember like what you were feeling? Was like your faith in humanity restored per se or
no. I guess my experiences with most of all the bullying I witnessed, I was bullied, I would say like a normal amount. I
Mhm.
personally know people who were bullied a lot worse.
Yeah.
I was like bullied by the popular kids and had a lot of friends outside of that and like a very stable sense of identity
Yeah.
outside of that experience. And so it did leave damage. And I'm like, everyone, and then my
Yeah.
insecurities now have to do with what I was picked on at 12 years old. That's how it works.
Right.
But I don't want to come across as wearing the mantle for the worst bullied person in America.
Sure.
That's not what my experience was. What I witnessed through like the kind of like normal bullying I had, and some pretty more severe bullying that I witnessed through people I
Mhm.
love, that I talk about in my anti-bullying program,
Mhm.
is I really think that there is a issue with the way that we speak about bullying to parents and students that treats bullying like it's evidence of like the kid being a bad kid, and then like there are bad kids that bully, and then there are like good kids that don't.
Mm.
That's not been my lived experience at all. Like, obviously, I haven't done any, like, academic studies on this, but kids hurt, like they say, like, hurt people, but,
Right.
like, it's it's not just hurt people, like, with kids. It's like all children are, one, incredibly self-centered. It's biological. The empathy centers of your brain don't develop until you're older. So, like, it's not like a bad kid is self-centered. All kids are self-centered. It's natural and it required for their development, right?
Yeah.
So kids are
Yeah.
self-centered. They literally don't experience empathy on the same level that adults do, right? Like, it's just true.
Sure.
I was that way. Other lived that way.
Yep.
And then we also have this narrative that are like bullies. That don't be a bully. Bullies are bad kids. And then
Mhm.
that kid didn't think of himself as a bully. He, like, literally hacked my AAM, sent awful messages to people from me, threw spit bomb at me at school. I literally guarantee you, this kid is like a normal functioning adult. He's going to cocktail parties, being like, "We really need to do something about this bullying epidemic in America." I guarantee it. He does
Yeah.
not see himself as part of the problem because we otherize the concept of bullying. We don't take it in. We don't
Mm.
say, but I have bullied people. I
Right.
have. I
Yeah.
don't I don't know, but I guarantee you I have because people don't remember it.
Yeah.
You don't think of yourself that way. And so in this story, the reason that I think it's such a good example
Mhm.
is that I sang a song about my life and my pain and he saw me as a person for the first time.
Yeah.
So then he treated me like a person. It's not that he was seeing me as a person the whole time, but was ignoring it and treating me poorly. He had
Mm.
never thought about my emotional internal world at all. And then I sang a song about losing a grandparent and that he'd probably lost a grandparent. And he was like, "I'm really sorry to hear that."
Yeah.
This person thinks of themselves because like I'm not gonna go so far as to say this person's a bad kid.
Yeah.
I almost guarantee he's not a bad adult, and I wouldn't even say he was a bad kid. What does that mean? Can a child be bad? Is that something that a child can do? I don't think a child can be bad. And
Yeah.
so, this I tell the story in my anti-bullying program of my little brother was ill as a child and really bullied for it,
Mhm.
and I wrote a song about it that's very meaningful to me and my family and very emotional from that time. And
Mhm.
as I tell this story of his experience in middle school, and that is what I'm talking about with, like, severe bullying. It was unacceptable how it wasn't normal personality. Like, I'm funny now because I was bullied as a kid. Like, that joke, like, "Oh, if you
Yeah.
weren't ugly as a kid, you don't have a personality." Like,
Right.
I have a big personality because I was picked on. That's not the level that my brother was picked on. It was more severe than that. And
Okay.
I tell this whole story
Mhm.
about him, and I sing this really emotional song. I cry almost every time I sing it.
Mhm.
Usually, kids in the audience cry. It's the heaviest part of my program because it was the part that was really heavy and real, right?
Yeah.
And my brother, is still dealing with this. As I say, I'm still dealing with it to the level I was my severity. Well, he's still dealing with it at the level that his severity was.
Right.
And I tell this whole story to the kids, and these are middle school and high school students, and I say, like, when I ran, and this is the truth. It's everything I say is true. I
Mhm.
ran into the kids that, like, I will never forget them because I wanted to storm into their school and, like, pick them up by the collar and yell at them when I was 15 and he was 11.
Yeah.
I ran into them years later, and a lot of people in my hometown, like, know who I am on site
Right.
because of my music.
Yeah.
And I ran into these kids, and literally, I kid you not, they were like, I went to school with your brother. He's such a good kid, man. How's he doing? No memory because they weren't waking up every day and being like, "Oh, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to
Yeah.
go ruin his life. I'm going to make sure he's in therapy 15 years from now. Screw that kid." That's not what happens. But that's the, like, movie PTA experience of what a bully is, right? These kids were normal kids
Yeah.
who went to school, felt insecure for a second, standing in the hallway. Somebody said something to them to make them feel insecure. They panic. Their identity is being threatened. And remember, they're 12 years old. Their brains aren't developed to handle this.
Right.
They turn and look for the easiest target. And because my brother was sick, he was always the easiest target. So they would look for something, an easy target, to shift the attention. They would think of something cruel to say in 1 second. They would say it in 1 second.
Mhm.
They would feel better in that social dynamic for 1 second.
Right.
And then they walked away. They did not identify as bullies. They do not lose sleep at night. They don't remember. And the reason I tell that story in schools is because none of the kids sitting in that audience think that they are the issue. Not a single one of them does. Because they all are, and none of them are.
Yeah.
I tell this story, and it's you can see I get worked up about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
still, it's unbelievable. It has completely shaped my understanding of how we need to approach this issue. Because I think I never say the word bully once in my entire anti-bullying program, because it loses all meaning. It's a word that has no meaning,
Yeah.
because if you go to a parent and you say, your kid bullied my kid, that parent is gonna go through the roof. You just called their child a serial murderer. It is a black and white thing. Well, it wasn't their fault because that person said this. And listen, I'll probably be as defensive of my kid and their reputation. I'm not trying to shame. I'm not saying that anyone.
Right.
It's all very emotionally understandable.
Yeah.
But I tell that story, and it is a build up in that point to that story. I call it an anti-bullying program. It is an empathy building program. It is not an anti-bullying program, because that doesn't freaking exist. It's an empathy building program. It's empathy for others, and it's empathy for yourself. The story about my brother is intended to lead you to reflect on your empathy for others. And the stories about me are intended to help you reflect on your empathy for yourself. And so I tell this story. And one of the times I tell it, this is a long time ago now, I got a email from like a little like sixth grade girl.
Mhm.
Sixth graders write in the most adorable, innocent little way, right? She sent me like a 40-line email that like I'm still talking about like 7 years later, right? She sent me this email. She's like, "Hi, Casey," because I give all the kids all my contact information.
Yeah.
She's like, "So school has not been good because I have cancer, and none of the kids would sit with me at lunch because they didn't want to catch the cancer. But
Mm.
after you came, everyone asked me to sit with them at lunch. So it's better. Anyway, thanks. Bye." I was like, oh my.
Right.
But think about that story. Her school wasn't full of sociopathic monsters. We've all been 12. Can't you see how the phrase catch the cancer could go around? Can't you see that? Doesn't
Yeah.
that ring a bell with being 12?
Yeah.
And it's not that all those kids are evil. It's that they literally forgot to think about her as a person. Literally. We approach bullying with children, I think, as adults, like we would deal with like workplace harassment.
Mhm.
But no, it's different. Their brains are different. We need to reassess that kids literally like don't know how to like literally teach them how to experience empathy.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's a long story, but I think that end of that really exemplifies that. Yes, I am like deeply proud to my core and like can sleep at night because of emails I get like that, where I'm like,
Right.
I'm a musician, I'm not helping the world, I need to drink Greenpeace, like all these things. And then I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is my skill, right? And it's for that girl, right?
Yeah.
She might not be in as much therapy now, 10 years later, as
Yeah.
she would have been if I hadn't gone to the school. I take like deep credit, and also me going to school, also my brother being brave enough to let me share his story,
Mm.
also these administrators having the foresight to book me. So like it's everybody coming together and valuing this type of work, right?
Yeah.
But also those kids are going to value that is a reflection point. And maybe half the students, it just became uncool to say catch the cancer and they stopped.
Right.
But at least the other half of the kids had like a moment of reflection where they were like, oh my God, I've been saying catch the cancer to this girl, right?
Right.
And I really think that that would be my lived experience, having been around so many children, is that we just need to focus on empathy building. I think we underestimate how little empathy kids have in that stage of their life.
That is like literally, you just made me look at it totally differently with you telling that story, and it makes such sense. Like it totally does. And I'm like trying because so I was the person, and literally this is why I have my podcast, because I found my purpose 20 no how old am I? 35 years later. And I'm like, what am I good at? What am I good at? And I'm like, I'm really good at having conversations with people. Like even when I was a little kid, I hated anybody that felt left out. Anybody. If they looked different, if they had some kind of disability, if they weren't in the popular crowd, I absolutely hated for them to feel left out. And I think that stems from seeing my brother being treated badly by my dad. And I had such great empathy for my brother that if I saw it from anybody else in school, I'm like, who the fuck are you to be like that person to this person? Like, I just didn't understand it. So I feel like I was super empathetic, but probably it wasn't like I was consciously just all the time, walking around being like, well, I really, really care for him. But I just remembered that being a part of me. But you're so right that it might not be a
Even
part.
then, you were probably less empathetic than you are now.
Oh,
I think like
100%.
empathy and that skill
Is like I was picked on a lot because I
stood up for the kids that were getting like
absolutely bodied every day at
Yeah.
school. I had some pretty bad bullies at my school, and I would just intervene. And the only way, I didn't have the um, skills at 10 to
Mhm.
know what to do. I just would shift the negative emotion onto me so they could get away. That was
Yeah.
the only skill I had. And I
Yeah.
look back on it with pride, but I look back at it as an adult, I feel so bad for myself. I know that sounds like I look at myself as a child. This is like therapy. I'm like, it's helping me. But I look at myself as a child and I just feel so bad for myself. I had to do that all by myself. It
Yeah.
hurt. I did it and I'm proud that I did it, but it doesn't mean I wasn't super damaged by doing it constantly. I was.
Right.
And, I have received messages from people who I went to middle school with who thanked me for how I was.
Mhm.
But I guarantee you there's at least one person in the world
who thinks it's ironic that I am an anti-bullying person. I bet you I said one thing to one person one time or 5 things to 5 different people over 5 years. And
Right.
those people are like, what the fuck is Casey McQuillen talking about? And those people would be right too. Like, that's my point.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, we all have those like 3 things we said in high school that just like rattle around our brains when we go to sleep. I could tell you them, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm sure there were others I wasn't paying attention, I wasn't thinking. And so that's kind of my point, is like, I think I've been in, this is my work, right? Like, I literally write songs about feelings and then like share them with you. I'm like a really empathetic person on that scale.
Yeah.
I guarantee you there is a text thread that's like, if Casey McQuillen doesn't stop talking about bullying, right? Like, I guarantee you, and I
Yeah.
apologize to that person. Like, I would take complete, because that has been my experience. Is every single person on earth has said, and everyone has said and done things,
Mhm.
and some were intentional. That's also the thing. It's not always by accident.
Right.
Sometimes you were in, or sometimes you didn't step in. I remember there was this one kid at my school, man, and I now understand, was autistic. We did not have the education around different types of people that now kids have.
Sure.
But he was such a good kid, man, and people were so brutal to him. And I just knew that he didn't have the tools to properly navigate being bullied. Like,
Yeah.
right? And I would I would intervene on his behalf a lot.
Yeah.
And but the clearest memory I have is one time, this is like, my school was kind of rough. We were out in like the schoolyard at lunch, and all the kids were in a circle and they were like making him like dance. And the thing is, I could see he likes to dance, right?
Yeah.
But people weren't laughing with him. They were laughing at him.
Right.
And he could feel it, but was confused. Because remember, we're 12 and he
Yep.
was like autistic. And I remember being on the outside of the circle, and I had just been really picked on for standing up for him like the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, you know, I would get like the whole school would call me an insulting name, or like it just really, it was tough stuff. It wasn't easy. Like it was hard. It was not easy.
Yeah.
Like it was not, it was like, it was hard. The thing is, I had a really strong sensitive identity. So I was okay, but it was really awful. And I
Right.
remember this one time, everyone was standing on the edge and he was being bullied, but he didn't really understand he was, but he did though. Like I could feel it. I
Yeah.
could see it. And I didn't have it in me to
Mm.
walk into a group of like 70 kids and be like, the fun police is here. The fun police is here. Everybody go home. And I would go, I'm going to get the principal. If you don't stop, I'm going to get the principal. And it would be like, fuck you, Casey. And right. And I would be like, yeah, fuck me. I'm the worst. And that's
Right.
what I would do. And I literally have the clearest, my clearest memory is the one time I didn't. I couldn't do it. I had this thought that I was like, if I do this, like it's, but like they already spit on me when I walked down the hallway. Like, what's gonna happen to me? And I was 11. I didn't know. We didn't have the training in school that I should have gone to get a teacher and have them interview. I didn't know. And also
Right.
the teachers weren't the best back then, man. Not
Yeah.
all of them were your ally in these situations. And
Right.
so that's what I mean, that like life is complicated. It's hard to be 12. And
Yes.
these poor kids. And so we got to give them these resources on, you know, when you're in this, how that's what I say when I say I look at myself with empathy. I told that story to my therapist with like shame that I was like a
Mhm.
bad kid because I hadn't intervened.
Yeah.
And he refused it. He was like, that's really sad that you were 11 years old and having to make that decision.
Right. Right.
What about the other 69 kids in that circle? There's 70 kids. Why was it always you? But it was always me because it was always me. So then why would anyone else do it? Because I was always doing it. And they
Yep.
saw what happened to me when I did it. So why would they do it?
Yeah. They're like, I'm out. No.
So
Dang.
it's tough, you know?
Yeah.
And then social media has this horrible aspect to it. I think that's why I really was, I survived that
Mhm.
experience. Not unscarred because like I'm still like getting upset talking about this, like it's obviously still scarring, but
Yeah.
I went home and was left alone. I went home and went to soccer camp separate. I went
Sure.
home and did the play down the street. I left, school ended, and then I was with my like theater brigade, and like no one picked on me for like
Right.
2 to 4, and kids literally can't escape. They can't escape.
Yeah.
And the most popular kids, that social capital was translated into numbers. They have more likes, they have more
Mhm.
followers, they have more views, and they have more power. It's really difficult. But at the same time, when you don't allow your child after a certain age to engage with social media at all,
Yeah.
I think it's a form. I would go so far as to say I think it's a form of gaslighting. When you tell your child with no explanation, you can't have Instagram because I say so, and they're like 14.
Right.
We're telling them that their experience with reality is not valid.
Mm.
They're like, it's important. They're like, well, I say it's not. It wasn't. I didn't need Instagram when I was your age. Why do you? Well, like my mom when I was in high school, my mom didn't believe in texting. She's a little bit of a, what's that word? A Luddite. She's a little bit of a Luddite. Sorry,
I've
mom.
never even heard of that.
It's a Luddite. It comes from a form of Protestantism.
Okay.
Luddites or something where like they didn't believe in technology. So then this
Okay.
phrase became like you're a Luddite if you like resist technology. So my
Yeah.
mom's a little bit of a Luddite. And she would hate that I said that on a podcast, but it's so true. She was like, digital cameras are a phase. I'm not going to do that. Why would anyone do that? Now, you know,
Right.
iPhones, who needs an iPhone? And similarly, she did not believe in texting. She did not believe in it. I'm not that old. I was in high school without texting. Like, I cannot describe to you how I was the only student on the entire campus that did not have texting, 100%. The only student on the entire campus. And I literally got dumped via text and didn't know. because he texted me and then I never got it, and he thought I was just like being chill because I was like so young. I was in high school. I'd be like, I was like, I was going to the school dance with him, so I'd be like waving like hi. I was all excited, and then I literally heard this other girl in the school locker room talking about how like she was so excited to go to the dance, and I was like, what? I'm going to the dance.
Oh my gosh.
So in that sense, right, I came home and was like, you ruined my life, right, to my mom, but like, okay,
Yeah.
I stand by that you ruined my life. I mean, like her blind insistence that texting was not necessary completely invalidated me and my siblings' lived experience, that like she wasn't taking into account that it was so standardized that society wasn't going to adjust to include me.
Right.
I was excluded now.
Yeah.
And when you tell a 15-year-old girl, oh, you don't need a smartphone, society is not going to adjust to include her. And that would be the same as your parents saying when you were in the 80s, you have to wear skirt to your ankles and things to your knees and this every day. Every day. I don't care if that's how we did in my day. Why do you need it? It's like, well, I'm going to look different. I'm going to be left out. This isn't how people my age do things. And so I'm not saying that all parents should allow their kids to have social medias, but I think it's a very important place where it shouldn't just be because I said so.
Yeah. To have a conversation.
And they're going to yell and they're going to disagree with you. And they're not going to I'm not saying you're going to convince your child that you're right. they're never going to agree with you. But I think it's really important, even if that's not your normal parenting style.
Right.
Really important if you are limiting a student's access to their online social life.
Yeah.
That you give them the same respect and like recognition of their existence being real. And you really need to explain that I understand how important this is. I'm valuing other things on top of this. And I know, and this was my thought process here.
Yeah.
Or kids are it's like, anyway, it's like my little pedestal. And I'm sure a bunch of parents are like, this girl doesn't have a kid. She can't talk. And that's fair. That's a fair critique. But that's my thought without having children.
I think, well, because I have a 19-year-old daughter. How old are you? No, I have a 20-year-old. She just turned 20.
Oh my gosh, exciting. I'm 29.
Okay. You're 29. Okay. So we are like, I'm 36. No, yes, 36. I'll be 37. Okay. So I was like, holy shit. For some reason, I was thinking you were younger. And I'm like, this girl knows a lot for being, but so does my daughter.
It's because I'm so just youthful and glowy. It's because all the money I spend on skincare is worth it. No, it's because I have great lighting set up right now in my room to make me look younger than I am.
Well, you could have said 21 and I would have believed you, because I saw somewhere on the internet. Maybe I saw something like when you were on American Idol.
Yes,
you were
when I was
younger.
on Idol, I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, my daughter is 20 now. And so we totally went through the phase of Instagram and everything. And I will say, being a parent, I did the same thing of like, I didn't want her on Instagram, Snapchat. She didn't have a phone, I think, until she was 16, because she had done some stuff. Like,
you were trying to reset boundaries.
Yeah, but I will be the first parent to admit that not all of my reasonings were right and okay. Like, you can't have Instagram just because I said so and I'm the parent and that's the end of it and you should have no say. Like, I can be learning at the same time that my child is also learning, and also like admit that like, oh, maybe this wasn't the best tactic. Like, maybe, not that she was like mad at me. Don't worry. She had plenty of other Instagrams I didn't know about.
Exactly. Kids will just figure out a way.
Oh, yeah.
It's so important to them that they will find a way to do it. And again, like, that is a complicated question, whether to have when your kids get social media, like, because social media is damaging, but it is a reality of our existence. Yeah. And it is complicated to ban somebody from, it's like if your parents had said, you cannot see anyone on the weekends. Never. I don't care the situation. Weekends are for family. You'd be like, well, Susie's barbecue. It's like, no, I want to date this guy. No, weekends are for family. What did I say? I'm the parent. It would have been devastating. You would have snuck out.
Oh, well, let me tell you my story. So, my mom came to me. I was 15 years old and I was dating my first super serious boyfriend in high school, and we were dating for like 3 months, and my mom decided to come and have the birth control talk with us, and she's like, if you guys are having sex, I just want to get you on birth control, blah blah blah." And in that moment, I'm like, I am not telling my mom I'm having sex with him, because then she's not ever going to let me see him. She is going to be like, "You're out the door. Don't ever go see him again." So I lied straight to her face,
Mm.
and then I wound up pregnant.
Oh, that's so difficult. Would you
So
feel like that was amongst the first time your mother had opened that door? That you didn't trust her because the conversation it started then? There'd been no there'd been no
yeah.
talk about like your body, your choice kind of up until then?
Yeah, I mean, she had a bad childhood, so we had kind of talked about stuff before. Um, yeah, that's a good question. Now I'm trying to
And it's
think
hard
back at
because
it.
what if your daughter was 13 and came to you and said, "I wanna go on birth control, I'm having sex," you'd be like, "You can't see that boy anymore." Like, so it's complicated. Like, where do you
Yeah.
draw the line? I listen, I don't it's really easy for my glass house to throw stones 100%.
Yeah, I
Um,
know, and there's no like that's what I don't want it to be, is like black and white. Like everybody has their choice and opinions on what works best for their family, but it is best to hear options and to hear stuff, because like you're right. You want to hear, like, maybe you don't hear from your child, but you hear from another child being like, it's really bad. Like, this boy is getting picked on because he doesn't have Instagram, or he doesn't even know all this stuff because he doesn't have it. Like, maybe you
or
would
like there's
reassess.
a style of I've noticed that every school has its own culture. It's really fascinating.
Mm,
When you go into a middle school, it's like you enter this world because again, kids are really self-centered.
yeah.
And so their world is their world, and that's what exists.
Yep.
Even with social media, it still is really close. It's the people you're around, you know?
Yeah.
And what I hear from students a lot is like they know what bullying is, and the
Mm,
adults don't believe them. So it'll be like, well, Sarah posted a photo of all of us, and I'm the only one she didn't tag. And like, this is the eighth time this has happened. And you go to your mom and you're like, I'm so upset. Like, I don't want to go to Sarah's birthday party. And it's like, no, I'm sure it must have been a mistake. And it's like your kid's gut instinct about whether they're being picked on is correct. It's like
yeah.
always right because it
Right.
means different things. That like my age, I literally wouldn't even think to notice. But
Hmm.
it's like it's if your daughter comes to you and is like, well, Sarah always comments like, oh my God, Bessie, love it
Yeah.
on their stuff, and then just comments the fire emoji on yours. At some schools that might mean nothing, and at her school it might mean everything. And
Yeah.
so like we need to again, it's this like believing children, like
Yeah.
believe them when they say that they're hurting. They're experiencing it as pain.
Yeah.
And so you just saying, oh no, I'm sure they didn't mean it. You know, when like you talk to a guy and you're like, oh my God, that girl said that I had cute shoes and the way she said it, oh my God, she hates me. I don't want to go to this party. And he's like, I'm sure. And she's like, I just like boys. I mean, I really have girlfriends. Like, I just have guy friends.
Right.
And I don't like that. She's like, no, she's so cool. What are you talking about? And you're like, I can't talk to you about this. It's, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
that, but like, honest, it's like there's like there's sometimes a gender divide on like what we experience
Mm,
as
hmm.
like the social rules.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
also it's generational.
Yeah.
So
And
things that I would not consider to be hurtful, somebody who's 16 might really, really, really be bothered by.
right. And if they don't know how to communicate that, because then you have to be vulnerable. Like, you can't come out and say, "Mom, I'm actually really scared that I'm not going to have any friends," or "I'm actually really scared," or "I'm sad," or "my feelings are hurt because, well, it seems like she likes Sarah way more." Do you know how hard that is to, like, for somebody to say that my feelings are hurt, or I'm scared to be rejected by these people? You don't come out and say that. So you come out and say it a different way that
Yeah, like,
parents might not pick up on.
right. And also like, yeah, I think it's just tough because like 13-year-olds aren't the most like logical, reasonable people in the
Yeah.
world.
Right.
But
So they might not even realize it. that's what it is.
I do remember sometimes that like I really got into it with my parents.
Yeah.
And I do remember the times that they explained their reasoning, even if I didn't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
and the times that they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. So
Yeah, I kind of just feel like the definition of social exclusion
Mm.
changes like every day.
Yeah.
And it changes in these micro ways that if we go into the situation as adults, being like, well, we're adults, so we know best. Of course, we're adults, so we have a better ability to like analyze and see the long term effects of opportunities and things. But we don't have all the information. I think we got to be open to the fact that our children and students might have more information than we do, and we actually want that information from them, because people are banning their kids from social media because they're trying to protect their children.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my mother is like, just call people, and I'm like,
I'm not gonna call people.
what if you call people?
Right.
And it was like, right? And so she's like, well, I call people. And she didn't take the time to really listen to like
Yep.
my reasoning of why I wouldn't call somebody, how that would be like considered rude and invasive in my social circles. To call someone would be
Yeah.
rude. And I'm not saying it probably wouldn't have changed her mind, but that was important information for her to have.
Yeah.
That, right? That I was unwilling to do that, not because I was shy. I was unwilling to do that because it was socially unacceptable.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We could talk forever about this, like literally. So my last question around this, do you still do that tour or no?
So the tour's been on a bit of a hiatus for
Okay.
COVID. I
Oh,
did
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
online shows,
Okay.
and if I'm being fully frank, they were incredibly draining for me. The show is actually like 70% talking, and
Yeah.
I found it incredibly difficult to do with no feedback.
Mm.
Because you have to mute the kids, right? And so I was just
My show is very conversational. I go out of my way to make it not sound
Yeah.
rehearsed.
Yeah.
And so it's incredibly difficult to have an hour-long conversation with no input. It's just really hard.
Yep.
And I did some, and I to be honest, the kids, like I was really drained from it. I was walking away not feeling fulfilled and connected. I was feeling really isolated and like depressed that we
Right.
were in a pandemic. If I'm being for my mental health, I stopped doing them, and also I
Yeah.
felt so. Those were shows that like I was gonna do in person, and we rescheduled them to be online at the very
Okay.
beginning.
Yeah.
I felt incredibly uncomfortable reaching out to schools during this complicated time.
Yeah.
They get so in it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to like harass an administrator who was trying to figure out what to do.
Right.
I just couldn't do it. So I am planning fall 2023. I will be back. So if anybody is interested in hearing more about my program, my website is Listen to Casey, like my name, Casay. Listen to Casey, and there's a whole tab on it on bullying prevention. And
Yeah.
you can see the clip of me on the Kelly Clarkson Show. You can see a sizzle reel of the program, and I do actually have recorded versions of my entire program that I will send to administrators and stuff if they want to take a look. But I would love to come to people's schools. I'm really excited to get back in.
Yeah.
I miss kids. It's been so long, so I
Right.
can't wait. Because as you hear, sorry, I played it. I could do it. I was like doing it all the time, and it's been
Right.
sad to not. So it'll
Yeah.
be really exciting to go back. And I actually have a few songs that I'm going to be adding to my program from my upcoming album. Well, my album that just came out. That deal with the album is called Skinny.
Mm.
And as you can tell, I'm a voluptuous lady, a curvy lady. And very ironically named my album Skinny. But I wrote a song actually as the pandemic ended that was about my first night out at the bars. And I gained weight during the pandemic. And so because I gained it during the pandemic, my social experience of having gained weight was actually very drastic. I went from being perceived as thin to being perceived as not thin overnight, in a way, socially, because I had gained the weight during the pandemic, which I actually think this is an experience a lot of people had during the pandemic. And so, but as someone who went from like a size 8 to a size 12, I found that like that's the cutoff of like whether you're considered thin or not. And so my experience in life is just very different as a mid-sized person. That's the the way I think of myself, because I don't experience a lot of the fat phobia that
Mm-hmm.
people in larger bodies than mine do experience. My sister
Yeah.
and I have a phrase, we call it thin passing. I'm pretty thin on top. And so I think I still benefit from a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
social graces that are afforded to thin people in our society. I'm also like white and conventionally attractive and young, and so it's compounding
Yeah.
this experience. But so I wrote this song called "Skinny" about my first night at the bar, and I was obviously being treated differently by other people, but I think much more problematically, I was treating myself differently inside my own head. And I had a very, in some ways, upsetting night. I didn't really have fun. I was picturing in my mind all the fun I would be having if I was still thin. But I wasn't present. I was with my thin girlfriends who were running around the bar, and there was all these men. How many drinks can they get? Like they couldn't drink all the drinks that were being brought for them. And I was walking up to guys and getting shot down, shot down, shot down, shot down, shot down. And I tell you, that wasn't my experience when I was 30 pounds lighter. And
Yeah.
so it was really upsetting. And so I wrote this song. It's the song that comes before, I wrote this song. This is the song I listen to before I go turn on Lizzo. It's like, if I need a pump up jam, it's because I need pumping up,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I wrote a song about my honest experience of that. It's sometimes really hard to be the fat friend. And I'm not desensitized to it because I haven't always been fat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really seeing it like very clearly. Like the experience was so jarring, going from being thin to being not thin in some ways socially overnight. And so I wrote
Sure.
a song called Skinny, and it's been a really in some ways emotionally challenging song. I named an album Skinny, and then as a not thin person had to figure out how to shoot an album cover for the
Yeah.
song Skinny. And I really wanted my body to be the focal point of the album work. Because I could have just done a picture of my pretty face and ignored it. But
Yeah.
that's not the point of the song. The point of the song is that I can't ignore the body I have. It
Right.
doesn't let me. So anyway, so I'm going to incorporate that song into my school programs. And I also have a song on the album called Can a Heart Go Bad, which is a song I wrote about my struggle with mental health. And I actually wrote the song based in what it was like to be 12. And I did not have the language to describe what a panic attack is, what an anxiety disorder is. And so I just really internalized it that I must be a bad person. If I'm having these outbursts, and I was raised in like an Irish Catholic family. So it's like, if you do bad things, you're a bad person. Like,
Right.
it's like the guilt machine is pretty hardcore. And so my family's, to be honest, my society, my people's way of dealing with bad behavior is like shaming you until you change.
Yeah.
And the truth is that you can't shame somebody out of a mental health disorder.
Mm-mm.
And so I am a good kid. I was a good kid. So I tried to shame my parents shame me, and then I tried to shame myself more. Why isn't this working? And so my song "Can a Heart Go Bad" is very meaningful to me. It's very challenging to sing and play, but it's been incredibly moving. So I'm looking forward to continuing the Matter tour and adding these new songs for my album that are a little bit closer to home of who I am now, as well as the stuff I wrote when I was in middle school and high school.
Yeah. I love that. And also, I don't know if you know yet, Casey, but I have access to your song. I've been given access. And it's
I sent the access thing.
okay, good.
Good.
Good. Because that song, Skinny, is going to be played at the end of this episode. So you guys will want to stick around to listen to that song. So I think it is beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you.
And now that
I recommend waterproof mascara.
Yeah.
For your first listening of the song.
Yeah. So I had a similar experience, and you can't tell from like where I'm sitting now. So I'm 6 feet tall. I've always been skinny.
Mm-hmm.
But I will preface that after I had before I had my daughter, I had her at 16, but I was 6 feet when I was 16. So I was 130 pounds, like looked probably disgusting. Now, through the pandemic in 2019, I worked my ass off and I lost like 20 pounds. Pandemic, I gained it all back. and I started getting like really self-conscious. Well, I had a similar experience to you, but I went to a wedding back in March for my boyfriend's brother's wedding. The whole wedding was ruined because I hated the way that I looked. And I was so mad at myself after the wedding that I spent all that time like in my head being upset. I did not dance, which is not like
Oh,
me. So then we went to Mexico 3 weeks after that, and I said, "Melissa, you are not ruining another trip. You're not. You're gonna just put on your swimsuit and you're gonna have fun and you're not gonna freaking care." And so I at least kept that promise to myself in Mexico because of how bad it was for those freaking 7 hours that I was just miserable, and I'm like, "No, I can love myself anytime, no matter 10 pounds lighter, 20 pounds heavier, whatever." But I say all that just to know like how mentally consuming it can be.
yeah. And I think
Ugh.
like I have always experienced these issues in the gradients. So like I have never been able to flip a switch and be like, today I'm not going to be insecure about my body. I've
Yeah.
decided that that's not something that aligns with my values. So I'm not going to be insecure today. That
Right.
hasn't been my experience.
Right.
I can force myself to do things and continue
Mhm.
to participate, but I can't force myself to not feel uncomfortable while doing it. Now,
Yeah.
exposure and continually doing it will, I hopefully make me feel less uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you know, I went on this giant tour in the UK with an artist named James Morrison this fall.
Mhm.
It was awesome. Or no, this spring.
Yeah.
And, I am on stage. For example, I have to get all these like shiny, sparkly outfits to play these giant concert halls. You know how hard it is to find shiny, sparkly outfits when you're size 12, 14? It's not easy. They
Yeah.
don't make them. They really like don't exist. Like on the whole internet, they don't
Mm.
really exist. When you have big boobs and you need to wear a bra because you're on stage in front of 3,000 people, and they don't
Yeah.
exist. They're designed for cute little perky 20-year-olds without an ounce of cellulite who don't need anything to be hoisted up anywhere. And I spent months. I don't. By the way, I also can't shop in stores.
Yeah.
So these are like these things that like my thin friends are like, oh my god, no, just like don't be insecure. Well, I can't go into a store. They don't
Yeah.
make things in my size. Or the company does make things in my size, but they don't hold them in the store. Like I went to London, they lost my luggage for a week. I had a very difficult time
Oh,
buying clothing. They
yeah.
don't make they make it, but it's not in my size in the store. So
Right.
I went to stores where I actually own clothing. I was like, I'll just go to Abercrombie and get what I already own. They don't have it in the store. And so I spent months ordering clothes for this James Morrison tour.
Mhm.
I get it tailored because the clothes is not designed to fit my body type.
Mhm.
They just make thin people clothes and just expand them out, which is not how fat then sits on a woman's body. So it doesn't fit you. So you have to
Right.
get it tailored. And I ended up with a bunch of looks that were great, right? And so I got on stage every night as like a mid-sized person, sang songs about being thinness, and I was dressed to the nines. I looked sick, right?
Yeah.
All these girls who are heavy themselves would come up to me crying after the show, how validated they felt to hear me sing the song, but also how validated they felt to hear me sing the song. Someone they had been looking at for the show being like, this girl's so hot. This girl's so confident. This girl's so talented. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, this is how I feel about myself sometimes, right?
Right.
And what's not shown in that is the numerous nights I cried to my sister that
Mm.
none of the clothes fit me. What am I going to wear? What am I going to do? Why did this happen? And then the guilt. Why did I eat so much? Why am I so fucking fat now? Why can't I wear this? And then the guilt. Oh my God, I'm such a bad feminist. The problem's not me. The problem's the clothes. Like it's a horrible cycle, right? I feel guilty for being fat. I feel guilty for feeling guilty that I feel fat. I want to wear clothes that make me feel confident. The clothes don't exist. I feel guilty that the clothes don't fit. It's this horrible cycle. And so it's really easy to tell people just feel confident.
Mm.
But I think it's really complicated. And I think that's what I'm talking about with like almost all women
Mhm.
experience the pressure to feel thin. But
Yeah.
I found as I've gone up in sizes, there is a tipping point on when just pull yourself up by your bootstraps become less possible. because they don't make airplane seats that fit some people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that TikTok star Remy Bader, like she tried to go on the Revolve Retreat and go horseback riding. They wouldn't let her on a horse. They had giant men on horses, but she was too fat to be on the horse, right? Oh, just buy confident clothes. You're going on tour, wear whatever you want. They don't make it in my size. And so when girls are a size 4 and they were a size 0 and they go, you know, I just wasn't feeling myself, but I decided like I love myself. I love that. And I'm not saying that they weren't insecure, because society's so messed up that we all compare ourselves to we're all comparing ourselves to our 16-year-old bodies that had literally hormones hadn't finished adjusting yet. Trying to get back to a literal pedophilic body type that is being portrayed in the media as ideal. But the difference when I went from a size 2 to a size 6, between going from a size 8 to a size 12, and I'm sure it's even more pronounced when you go from a size 18 to a size 22, is that it's not fully in my control anymore. Whether I went to this is an embarrassing story, but I went to a Thanksgiving dinner at a really fancy restaurant and with my family, and they went to like fit the 5 of us at a 4-person table. So they brought out these like really, really, really like tiny chairs. They were like the smallest little like chairs, and they had these like really high things.
Yeah.
I went to sit in it, and can I swear on this?
Yep. We already have.
I have a fat ass, right? So I carry all my weight in my bottom.
Yeah.
I actually thought I looked great. I had planned my outfit, so I feel really confident. I was in Vegas. I was feeling myself.
Yeah.
And I had for the first time in my life the experience. I'm gonna cry. I had
cry, girl.
The experience where I like couldn't fit in the chair. Like I could, but I wasn't comfortable.
Right.
And it was so upsetting.
Right.
And you know, I take like the whole thing of like eating disorders and all that stuff so seriously. And I was sitting there and I was like, you have to order food. You have to order food. You can't not order. That is implying that I'm the problem. But I literally sat there and like, it was hard. It was difficult to eat because I was so insecure and so uncomfortable.
Right.
And my family, what does my family do at that point?
Yeah.
Do we insist we move? Because Casey's so fat, she can't fucking like So what I did, it was a phenomenal dinner. It was so good. They were really nice at the restaurant, right? And so what I did was I called the manager the next day and I said I had a fantastic experience. I said, if you are planning on putting a party in these chairs, you need to inquire if there's anybody who would not fit in smaller than average seating. Because I thought to myself, it was a very shame generating experience for me. And again, I also am thin passing and have a lot of privilege and am perceived as beautiful by a lot of society. And so it is less humiliating for me to walk in and speak to the manager with that, because he looks at me and goes, you didn't fit in the chairs? Really?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no, I'm a size 12 on the bottom, and like your chairs do not fit that. And that is the average size of women in America. It's a size 12. And I decided to take on that pain. This is maybe a theme of my life to bring this up to my therapist tomorrow. But I decided to take on that pain to try to protect someone who might be at a business dinner and they're a size 20 and they didn't come close to fitting in the chair.
Yeah.
And then the whole party has to move because they couldn't. How fucking humiliating would that be?
Right.
And so, as much as when you go from a size 4 to an 8, it's upsetting. There is a limit to what society will allow. And you have to have an identity that is so strong that it can stand up to society. I literally said to my mom, it's like they just told me people like me don't belong here.
Yeah.
Because we're in a fancy, really expensive restaurant and they don't want fattos here. That's what I feel like I was just told.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, that is what I was told. I wasn't projecting that. That wasn't my insecurity. That's what they told me. By making chairs that not everybody can fit in, that the average person can't fit in, they're implying, well, you have to be thin to eat here.
Yeah.
And so, I go on interviews in LA, and beautiful blonde TV hosts go, you're just so brave. And I started going, why? What do you mean? What do you mean? Because I'm like on TV and not thin. Yeah, I'm not going to watch this interview later because it's going to bother me how my stomach looks sitting on this couch. So you're correct. I am brave. But it's like, it's, so
People
that's
are amazing. People are amazing.
So that's the thing is
Like,
I've learned that like the body positive movement, which
mhm.
was started by people in very large, societally unaccepted bodies, it has gained general acceptance, which is great.
Mhm.
But when the most viewed TikToks on body positivity are girls who are size 2, and they're like, see, when I bend over, I have a roll, and everyone's like, you're so strong. And it's blocking out the video of the creator who's actually in a body that, like, when somebody sits next to them on an airplane, they go, ugh. And they have
Right.
to deal with that in their daily life.
Right.
It's this, the body positivity movement was started to accept your body that society is actively, consciously rejecting. Not to be like, I have a pimple today, but I'm still going to go outside. And it's great that everyone is getting confidence from this movement, but we need to make sure to not drown out the voices of people. And this is like, some people might say that as a mid-sized woman who only had her first experience of not fitting in a chair, I
Mhm.
shouldn't be speaking about this. You know what I mean? Like, there's people out there
Right.
would say I'm too thin to talk about these subjects.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really important that, and to recognize that all of these issues, like with the bullying stuff and all this stuff, it's a little bit more complicated than dusting ourselves off. It's a societal problem. And
Yeah.
hopefully by you and I talking about it and people in the media and just being loud, that's what and doing things like walking into the steakhouse and saying it's unacceptable that I had this experience. Please,
Yeah.
please change. I'm not going to lose weight. You make bigger chairs, or at least fucking warn me that you're going to put me in a small chair. Right? Anyway,
Yeah.
I told you, I warned you. I'm a
It's
talker.
okay. It's okay. I love it. I love it. And I'm learning so much. I was gonna one thing I did want to comment on was about the switch. Like when you said like you can't turn off the switch.
Mm,
I normally can't turn off the switch. I mean, I am becoming a like coach to coach people because I've been on this huge healing journey for the last 2 years after I've lost both of my parents and just other like trauma and stuff. And I want to make sure that like I never just say those words like, well, just be more confident or just do that. Like that is so unproductive. Like it's not even funny. So when I say I was able to switch it off, I was for that like trip, but that doesn't mean it hasn't like came back. It's came back and like I can't even deny that. Um but I
well, it's
think
like
I
as a
just
woman who's 6 feet tall, like that's not society's. They're not expecting you to be 6 feet tall. What's
no,
so funny
no,
is
no.
you tell me you go to bars and go up to men and ask them how tall they are, and then they're gonna lie and say 6 feet, and then you go back to back and be like, no, you're not, because that's what I would do every day if I was 6 feet tall. But like it's being 6 feet tall, you're going through middle school, towering over people,
Oh,
right?
yes. Oh,
You're
yes.
you are expected to not wear heels because it makes people uncomfortable. You have
Yep,
men avoiding dating
yep.
you because they don't want to feel, and like by the way, our society's obsession with women being small is actually a reflection that we need to make, like, men need to be manly. Like, we've defined manliness for men as
Yeah,
big and strong, and
right.
therefore if you are bigger than a man, you are emasculating him,
Yeah.
and that applies to weight and height. And so
Mhm.
it's all comes back, like when they're like, women, there's no such thing as, the patriarchy. I'm expected to be tall. And it's like, that's the patriarchy.
Yeah,
Patriarchy hurts everybody.
yeah.
And I would assume that being tall, that is a gradual form of self-acceptance.
Mm,
That it's not you put on 4-inch heels day one to walk into a wedding because everybody can suck it because you're hot.
right.
It
Yeah.
probably takes a lot of practice.
So, a couple things. In middle school, I always felt that guys didn't think I was cute because I was so much taller than them. So that
Right.
always bothered me. Then, being older, like, I don't wear as much like heels now, like big heels now, because I'm fucking 36 and I can't, like, I'm going to have 2 drinks and like break my ankle. But when I did, it was always a conscious decision. The conscious decision was, Melissa, do you want all the attention that it is going to bring with you wearing these heels? Because it is a lot. If I would walk into a bar and I'm 6'3" and every man would walk over to me and say, "Did you play basketball? I bet your parents are tall." And girls did it too. But it was just, so I'm like, if I wasn't like wanting to be that Miss Outgoing person, not wearing the heels, I can't deal with I don't want the attention at this moment.
And because exactly, and you can say over and over that, like, oh, people should just leave me alone and not be insecure, but like that's not going to be your experience in reality,
Right.
you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, what have we left out? What have we not talked about? We've talked about your album. We've talked about, I'm trying to get to my questions. Um, is there anything else that that we have left out that you want to talk about? Besides obviously where people can go and listen to your music and all that fun stuff?
If any you have any listeners in the UK, I have a bunch of shows coming up in the UK in the fall. So I'm going to
Yeah.
be playing 5 different shows all over the UK to some of the people that I met on the James Morrison tour, and it's going to be really fun. I'm really excited, and I promise I will sing more and talk less than I did in this podcast on those shows. But come see me, and you can get tickets on my website. Again, my website's listentocasey.com, and all my handles on social media are Listen to Casey, because as you know, when you asked me to pronounce my last name, it's not easy to spell. So
Right.
my handles are Listen to Casey, but you can find me on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, blah, 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 Amazon Music under Casey McQuillen. And make sure to go check out my album. I would love to see and hear from you guys, and I'm on all the socials. All the socials you can find me. Come hang out with me.
Everywhere.
And I would love to hear from you guys. And if you do come, and please let me know you came from this podcast, because I love to know where people are coming from.
That would be awesome. Casey, I have one last question to ask you that I ask all of my guests. In your own words, what does the bright side of life mean to you?
Oh my God, I should have known this question was coming.
No, I always do it off the cuff so people can't prepare.
What does the bright side of life mean to me?
My answer has changed over the last like 2 years.
Yeah, right. I think for me, the bright side of life has always been those moments where I feel accepted and loved and included and safe. And they happen. My sister and I were just reflecting, went to a bachelorette this weekend, that we're just so lucky that we have so many people that want to be with us and around us. And when I was in the depths of my anxiety disorder and I was having a really hard time, something I used to think about to try to get myself to go to sleep is that all of my friends are so great, right? Your friends don't have to be friends with you. They choose to be friends with you. Your family has to be with you. Your friends don't have to. And I've got such great friends. And I would list my friends in my head and think about, well, I know they don't hang out with people who aren't kind and good. And so I must be kind and good enough, or all these wonderful people want to be around me, which it doesn't show you why I needed to write that song about my mental health problem. I don't know what does. But when I am with all these kind, beautiful people that I have managed to keep in my life,
Yeah.
and I feel like I can be myself and be loud and be too much and talk too much and have too many opinions and do all those things, and I don't need a song to make it okay. I just can be me. I think that's my bright side. I just love it when I'm with, and I'd rather be with people I love and feeling like that communal energy in my apartment than on a huge fancy yacht with people I didn't like. I think that's, as you get older, you just realize it's only fun if you like the people you're with. It's not fun if you don't. So that's my bright side. The
Yes.
people in my life.
I love that. You are so right. Such a beautiful thing to say. So Casey, thank you again so much, guys. As you know, I'm going to have all of her links in the show notes, so you guys can go there, or you can go to the brightsideoflifepodcast.com and look at it there. Casey, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely.